Ray, hello, my friends, ladies and gentlemen. Today I want to jump on that gigantic sharp interactive board, share my thoughts regarding Lenovo and the dictator Xi, who heads up the Communist Chinese Party and controls all the people in China. We all know that Lenovo is a PRC, a People's Republic of China company. Thereby, that means the dictator's in total control of the company. It's the way it works over there in China. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, Lenovo publishes their year end, which ended at the end of March of 2025. They're so excited. Top line revenue is growing. You know, net income is growing over last year. I mean, they're excited. But you know, I'm thinking this. I'm thinking that dictator Xi, he could care less if Lenovo's profitable. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking he's probably meeting with the Lenovo leaders and telling them this. Look, if you need to lower the price of that equipment, lower the price. I don't need to make money off this stuff. I just need your technology inside U.S. government offices, inside U.S. military bases, on U.S. Navy ships. I need my PRC technology companies' technology inside all of the U.S. big, huge corporations. I mean, that's what he's got to be thinking that, right? Because he's a dictator. He can think that way. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going through the presentation, and you know, their CEO over there at Lenovo, he's talking about how they just had a great year, strong performance, innovative. He's talking about their strategy. I'm thinking to myself, Xi has a strategy with all of the PRC technology companies that he totally controls. What's his strategy? I think we should be focusing on Xi's strategy more than we should be focusing on Lenovo's strategy. Because I'm sure that Xi gets together with the communist leaders throughout China and says, hey, we got to figure out how to get this technology infiltrated more, especially in U.S. government offices. You know, on their Navy ships, on their military bases. He's probably yelling at them, figure this out. It's got to be a strategy, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I go to the website of Lenovo and I get disgusted right off the bat. Because I believe this website and the way they're presenting Lenovo as a company is deceiving. I believe this. It says Lenovo. Then it's got the stock symbols. Is a U.S. 62 billion revenue global technology powerhouse. You see, a lot of people will read that and they'll think to themselves, Lenovo is a U.S. 62 billion revenue global technology powerhouse. You see, Lenovo, that's a little bit, I mean, I think it's an outright deception. I think it should say Lenovo, a PRC, People's Republic of China company. And then people would automatically know immediately, oh, it's controlled by the dictator Xi. But the way you present this, it's a little bit crazy. A lot of people read that is a U.S. 62 billion revenue global technology powerhouse. Just want to tell you, I think that's deceiving. You know, ladies and gentlemen, just Google it. Lenovo Group Limited, trading as Lenovo. Chinese is a Chinese multinational technology company specializing in designing, manufacturing, marketing, consumer electronics, personal computers, software servers. It's a PRC. It's not a U.S. I mean, seriously, folks. And we know that all PRC companies, People's Republic of China, there's only one boss in China. It's the dictator Xi. Ladies and gentlemen, that what I believe to be a complete deception on Lenovo's website reminds me of Lexmark a lot. You know, I talked a lot about Lexmark. Holy crap. You know, Lexmark's owner's 9-star, got banned over the slave labor and all that stuff. The PRC companies could do some terrible, terrible thing. But Lexmark, they're bragging about their 30th anniversary timeline. You know what year they forgot to put on that? Well, 2016. Isn't that amazing? And 2016 is when the Chinese bought them. I mean, seriously, this is insanity at so many levels. I did episodes on it and said, what are you afraid? Why are you all afraid to disclose the fact that you're owned by the Chinese if everything's great? If you have all this autonomy, why are you afraid to say it? I'll tell you why you're afraid to say it. Because when you put it front and center, people's minds are going to think, why the hell would I buy a Lenovo? Why would I buy a Lexmark? Why would I buy a Phantom? Why would I buy anything from a PRC company? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be clear about something. It's not about where this stuff's manufactured, because I know there's an argument out there. Well, Ray, you know, everything's made in China. Well, everything's not made in China, and we're pulling a lot of stuff out of China. The other thing is, it's about the company. It's about the leadership of the company. You know, a PRC has no autonomy. Period. Doesn't matter where they're at in the world. They're controlled by the dictator Xi. And ladies and gentlemen, the communist definition of what's moral or ethical includes slave labor, organ harvesting, and many more completely disgusting things. It's not about where it's manufactured. You know, we're working on that. But we damn sure don't need to be putting PRC technology in government offices, on Navy ships, and in military bases, let alone huge corporations that are global. Right? You know, this letter was put out there by Chairman Mike Gallagher, who was the chairman of the Select Committee on the CCP. You know, folks, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on politically here in the United States. Both sides know the atrocities of the Communist Chinese Party. Both sides have big concerns over the Chinese Communist Party. Mike Gallagher, when he was the chairman, this letter was dated October 5th, 2023. Let me just read it to you. Washington, D.C., Chairman Mike Gallagher, Republican, Wisconsin, of the House Select Committee on Chinese Communist Party, wrote to the CEO of the U.S. Navy Exchange, requested the removal of CCP-linked Lenovo products from the discounted marketplace available to service members. He went on to say, Lenovo is a Chinese technology company with extensive ties to the People's Liberation Army and the CCP state-directed espionage campaigns. Lenovo's largest shareholder is the Chinese government. Okay? He's telling you, it's a PRC controlled by the Chinese government, and we all know who runs the Chinese government. Well, that dictator Xi, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to go through Lenovo's whole presentation. I'm just going to ask some questions, and we just need to think about it. It's not just about Lenovo, it's about PRC technologies in general. But here's a question for you. Does Xi, the dictator, think AI stands for American idiocies? I mean, somebody went up to Xi and said, we got AI. He's like, I know the Americans are idiots. I mean, I'm sure that's what he's thinking. I mean, my gosh, you know, we're putting our technology all through their government offices, you know, in their military bases, on their Navy ships. It's unbelievable what we're doing with our technology. Of course, they're idiots over there in America. I mean, that's what I think he's thinking. Does Xi respect patents? I mean, there's a lot of talk, right? We've seen all the articles, press releases about how China, you know, isn't really friendly around patents, right? I would say this, are any of Lenovo's innovations harvested off the patents of the Western world's technology? You know, I'm just asking the question, is there any Lenovo innovations that were kind of harvested from Western technology companies? And I wanted to use the word harvested because that has another meaning over there in China. Yeah, here's another congressman. You know what he's arguing? I mean, this is so disgusting that we would even have to have this kind of an argument. So you got United States Congressman Neil Dunn. This was dated March 17th, 2025. Not that long ago. Ladies and gentlemen, on Friday, Congressman Neil Dunn, Florida O2 introduced the Block Organ Transplant Purchase from China Act, or Blocked Act, to prohibit federal reimbursement for organ transplants and related medical services when the origins cannot be verified. Because in China, they do organ harvesting. It's disgusting. Can you imagine? You know? Hey, we need to go to those prisons and find somebody with B-type blood. I need their liver. You know, I don't care. Just take the liver out, save a lot of money. Don't worry about stitching it back up. We don't care if he dies. Oh my God, is that what they're thinking in China? It's terrible, ladies and gentlemen. It's just absurd that we actually are talking about this. Seriously. In our legislative, we're recognizing that China harvests organs. At the same time, we're trying to figure out how to buy more of a PRC's technology so we can put them in our government offices, in our military bases, and on our Navy ships. Totally unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, they did pretty good business last year. I mean, holy smokes, $69 billion. In the United States, they did $23.5 billion. Well, that's in the Americas. But $23.5 billion worth of PRC technology. You know, how many of the billions of that dollars went into government offices, school systems, you know, military bases, Navy ships? I mean, holy smokes. By the way, they had an increase in the net income from FY, which ended in March of 2024, but it's actually down 24% if you compare it to FY, which ended in March of 2023. So, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I could care less how profitable Lenovo is. I really could. I could care less that their top line revenue is growing. What really bothers me is that we just don't really care about PRC technology going into our government offices, our military bases, and on our Navy ships. I got to ask a question. Will Xi be giving out AI spy medals? I mean, I could see this coming soon in China. I mean, you know, ladies and gentlemen, there's another discussion. This was April 16th of 2025. Let me just read this. Some in the industry have claimed that the U.S. holds an 18-month AI lead, but that obfuscates reality. It's closer to 3 months. So us here in America, we're thinking we own the AI space. We got the lead. Not by much. And ladies and gentlemen, remember, you know, PRCs in China, well, they're controlled by a ruthless dictator, and they don't need to tell us everything they're doing, right? Come on, right? Give me a break, you know? Is Xi besides himself thinking he will be the greatest dictator the world has ever known because he and his Chinese Communist Party friends will have all the world's data? I mean, he's got to be thinking this. He's thinking to himself, man, before AI, we were getting our technology out there. We could do some things with it. But AI, well, that's going to change the game. I mean, we're going to really be able to get, oh my. I mean, he's got to be just besides himself. You know, thinking that we've already got the roadmap all laid out, right? Ladies and gentlemen, is Xi thinking he thought the balloons were an advantage? But the CCP, through its PRCs, can be the architect of cloud infrastructure? That is real world power, he's thinking. Ooh, ladies and gentlemen, when I go through this and talk about it, it's just bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. Who is thinking Xi will love all data libraries built from CCP AI products? You know, you remember here in the United States when Carnegie built all the libraries, you know, for the benefit of the people so they could go read, you know, get information. I'm thinking Xi's thinking, boy, we're going to have so much data. I mean, it's going to be our library of data is going to be so amazing. I mean, just think of the library of data. When you think about that in the hands of a dictator Xi, it's a little bit scary, right? Who else is thinking Xi is super excited about the profitability in the SSG group? Is Xi thinking the cost of spying is lowering? I mean, they're talking about how they made profit in their SSG group. Is he thinking to himself, boy, you know, we can actually spy with stuff and save money? Is that what he's thinking? I'm just asking the questions, ladies and gentlemen. Lenovo, 21% growth year on year, revenue $69 billion. You know, Xi, he's got this thing called the Belt and Road Initiative. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but you should study that. It's pretty interesting. You know, the Belt and Road Initiative is Xi trying to take over the world. He's not even hiding it. And ladies and gentlemen, I mean, at the end of the day, there it is. He's connecting the whole world, you know, through commerce, through currency, through technology. Xi, the dictator, as part of his Belt Road Initiative, is actually going to build a canal through Nicaragua, which would completely make the Panama Canal irrelevant. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to buy technologies through PRCs, People Republic of China-owned companies, we need to think about it. We need to think about what we're doing to aid a dictator with ambitions to control the whole world. You know, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want a dictator from the Chinese Communist Party controlling the whole world. Does Lenovo get an advantage because in China the communist government doesn't allow Western technologies into any Chinese government offices? I'm just asking the question. Here's another question. How does Lenovo deal with unexpected cost hikes? In the same way Nine Star apparently did? You know, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying Lenovo's using slave labor in their manufacturing process, but because they're a PRC, could they? If they wanted? Or if they were directed to? Could they? Would they? Tough questions. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on the war path against the Chinese Communist Party and technology for quite a while. And at the end of the day, it's not just me. It's congressmen, both sides of the fence. It's senators, both sides of the fence. It's a problem. It's a problem we need to deal with. Because at the end of the day, the Communist Chinese Party and its leader Xi, they're not business friendly. They're not even people friendly. They're control friendly. Do you want them to have control of everything we have? Keep buying their equipment. Keep putting their technology in your offices. Ladies and gentlemen, things got to change. And everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck there. And I'll see you all on Monday.